if you're new to the game and you want to play mid lane, then I would probably recommend watching some pro players and see how they do things. It's important for a mid laner to be a team player, and I think it's also important that you are selfish in the way that you don't get yourself too behind by helping your teammates, but also you do help your teammates when it makes sense to do so. So you really have to find a balance between playing selfless and playing selfish.
Down, getting auto attack after auto attack off, and that is the ace.
Good to hear from Ericsson. He was definitely a standout mid laner in the UKLC last split, and I'm excited to see more from him on that Nordavind roster coming up this NLC. Now, let's move on to our next game of the day. We just obviously have put Riddle and Ents to bed. Riddle very, very dominant in that particular game, and now it's Nordavind versus Singularity. There's already been a bit of spicy beef on Twitter between these two organizations. I saw a couple of interesting tweets, which you guys can go and look up for yourselves, talking about the Singularity roster and Nordavind as well. But let's start off with Chrisberg here, because I think he is obviously always been the shining light of the Danish scene, or the Nordic scene in general. Chrisberg has kind of been around for what feels like longer than me in terms of professional play in this region of the world. And Trouble, I know you've had a lot of experience with Chrisberg. What is he providing for his team?
Well, I did have the pleasure to cast for him when he did take the 2019 summer split in the Nordics, and ever since he has really been what you said, the shining star in every team. Whether he required the attention, asked for the attention or not, the teams were generally just very open-handedly giving it to him. So I'm really looking to see right here if Nordavind are gonna choose to do the same. Are they gonna play towards Chrisberg? Is Chrisberg gonna require resources to be that menace in the late game and cause havoc in the backlines on his ADC, or are they going to deviate into a different playstyle? Because I think they do have very, very talented players in this roster.
Yeah, of course. And speaking of more talent, someone that went away to the Brazilian scene for a little bit. He had previously been in the UK scene and is now coming back to the top lane, Mumus, or as Veteran likes to call him, Mumus. He's a guy that we kind of want to focus on here. Veteran, what do we think about with Mumus coming back into this roster? Oh, I think we've actually Veteran has been fallen suspect to his internet.
Oh,
I'll wait.
I think I'm back. I think I'm back.
He's back.
I think I'm back.
Okay.
What's up? We talking about Mumus?
We're talking about Mumus, yes.
the man, the myth, the legend himself. But Mumus actually used to be a major part of the UK scene on M&M. They did win Tower at least once, so that makes them major in my books in a region that was very heavily dominated by two teams. M&M were the challengers at one point. But Mumus himself has actually gone from strength to strength since then. He spent a split in the Brazilian scene, but he's actually gotten very high up in Challenger. At one point, he was the highest ranked top laner in Challenger this year. He's still over 1k RP, and he plays a very wide breadth of champions. So going off of the Chrisberg aspect, they could play around Chrisberg again, and this guy would be happy to play Ornn, etc. But he can pull out the Aatrox, he can still pull out his Urgot, he can pull out the Camille, he can pull out the Gangplank, he can pull out whatever he wants, and he will be able to play it. And I want to see him show that he can play this stuff in a wider aspect than just in solo queue. But if you want to play around Chrisberg again, you can, but they aren't necessarily locked in there. Chrisberg doesn't have to be the only shining light of his team there. And if he wants to prove himself against any top laner, Flaxish, who's coming back in, used to be the big guy of the European amateur scenes. He's coming in. He has a lot to prove, but he played in a much more selfish time with a much more selfish play style. Fizz was a champion used to very heavily associate with Flaxis, for example, Riven, etc. He could very easily take the fight to Mumus, and if Mumus wants to prove himself, he can take the fight to him there.
But, yeah, I'm excited. Oh, sorry, go.
Yeah, Mumus is not the only one who's a bit selfish on that lineup too. If you take it down to the mid lane, Vero has been known for tunnel vision a bit, for going in for the kills, and sometimes it's paid off for him where he gets kills in a scenario where he really shouldn't, and sometimes he's been caught out by the enemy jungler because he was too focused on getting that kill, not realizing what his lane state is. And the same can be said for the bot lane too. They play heavily for lane 2. You don't really see only 35 go out on a lot of roams on the map. He likes to look for plays down in the bot side, wants to get takes at a head too, who takes it. Also is a really, not per se greedy AD carry, story, but let's just say the guy plays Draven, so we know what caliber of guy we got here. And then obviously you want to round out that comp with Scoot, who's obviously known for his Nidalee, so the meta is fine for him there. I'm not necessarily sure how much he's been playing Graves, but it does fit in his champion pool too. Question is, will they be too miscoordinated because they're all a bit tunneled, or will they actually make the playstyle fit in together?
Yeah, I think Singularity, there was some questions raised. They kind of reformed their entire roster coming into the NLC, given that they had such a successful time through the previous Nordic Championship. So this is, there's going to be some question marks raised. And actually, speaking of this matchup, I'm going to tell you now, the talent across the board have gone for Nordavind as the winners. Veteran, is there any particular reason why you think Nordavind is favored in this matchup?
I actually have a lot of faith in the general skill level of the lineup as they stack up individually anyway. But as Goldberg points out, like the more I watch Singularity's players on the previous teams, the more I think that this is a team I'd expect to take a while before they play like a full team rather than just 5 solo queue players. And I think even as 5 solo queue players, it's not a clear-cut skill matchup in their favor versus Nordavind. I'd fully expect Nordavind to be the team to come in and win the first game, but maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe Flaxus will be able to 1v9 the whole thing. Maybe these guys can play their selfish style and just win out lane for lane. Who knows?
All right, we're into picks and bans. Trouble, it has been Scood's Nidalee taken off the board here, but pretty normal picks and bans or ban phase that we're seeing so far. Anything else that you expect to see taken off the board before we get through?
I would expect Syndra and Set for sure. These are two heavily flexible picks that are overpowered and way too deep in my illegal list to even count when I first added them there, probably when they first came out as champions themselves. But just a little pointer right there on one veteran said, are we claiming that maybe Singularity will pull the ends? That 1v1 material, I'm gonna kill you in your lane?
I mean, I definitely think from Singularity we could see that sort of thing. Syndra has been removed. I fully agree with you, Troubling. Like, I think any team that opens Syndra on red side deserves to be banned from the tournament, not gonna lie. But it has been removed. There's no chance Yumi's being removed, which means Ezreal Yumi won't be there. I'm interested to see if this Karma priority, that was clearly a thing in scrims, is brought up again, especially with Yumi off the table. That seems to be the default. I would be surprised. There's the set ban. I would be surprised if it was anything but an Aphelios first rotation here, though Trundle is finally up. Azir, though, being hovered. Oh,
it's the Graves.
Yeah, it's expectable.
Okay,
like just in general too, like the fact that we've seen the draft pattern go through this, it's usually Varus, Syndra, and Set coming out. Yumi and Nidalee's been a tendency too, so they do respect Singularity in that regard, but let's see if they have an answer for this Graves, because I feel like it's just being gifted to the blue side every time, and they're having issues with it.
Yeah, Nolte was kind of known for Elise. Like, Nolte back in the UK scene was basically like the Elise player. He was the level 3 jungler. He was kind of more about the early aggression. He'd always be very gank heavy. So I'm excited to see him pilot this Graves. It's going to be the Karma with the Aphelios locked in, Trouble, for this first rotation from Team Singularity.
And again, it could potentially go top, it could go mid, talking about the camera here, and choose to put something together with the Aphelios that might benefit you better in lane, depending what the side of Nordavind are going to choose to play with this. But snatching away the Aphelios off of Grisbeck, I think is a very crisp move to pull.
Oh, okay, that's a Misfortune rotated in versus Aphelios, so especially after the nerfs, I'm not really so high on this, especially with Ezreal up. We normally wouldn't associate Crisp with something like this. I would note, though, that a champion I do associate with Crispberg very heavily, I also don't really think it pairs so well with the Lulu, though the Graves does, is Kai'Sa, which is a very strong counter into Ezreal, so we haven't seen the normal Ezreal rotations that we would see from the side of Team Singularity.
I think of thinking about Crispberg throughout the ages, I'd even associate him with Ezreal. Like, I've always just thought sort of Crispberg as a solid Ezreal player as well.
You can throw a Kog'Maw in there and call it a day as well.
You can throw any hyper carry in there, really. Kai'Sa, Kog'Maw is like the go-to, and then just protect him. So it's a bit unusual seeing the Misfortune with Lulu. Last split, we did see him play this Misfortune too, and it felt like he didn't feel comfortable on this kind of champion. So I'm interested to see if Crispberg has actually got comfortable in Misfortune and can make that champion a beast even after these nerfs.
I mean, post 6, the setup isn't even necessarily there in lane for him, but this Lulu could actually be into mid. And the big thing that we can talk about here is that maybe the priority isn't on Chrisberg at all, but actually is moving up towards Mumu's in the top lane. And Ornn has been locked in. They're going to ban 2. Wukong's already removed. If he thinks that there's a carry that he can play into, like Camille, for example, or Renekton, one of those two will be up. Maybe we could actually see them tend towards top instead of bot.
I will absolutely, I will absolutely agree with you, especially because they locked in the Misfortune. We talked about so many hyper carries that you could have locked in if Nordavind wanted to play around him. And I feel like the Lulu will benefit both the Graves and potentially, like you mentioned, sort of a carry champion towards the top side as well. I think that Chrisberg right here is gonna play Zone City with the Misfortune and the ultimates to navigate the team fight wherever he wants, so his team can benefit from that.
Yeah, I was going to talk about, we talked about in the beginning that Flashes or any other of the members could be extremely selfish, but I feel like with the Ornn third pick here, you're actually being very selfless. And that also opted into you to get a 4th pick jungler instead, which is going to give you the counter pick in mid lane. So with a weak side top laner, with the pressure coming in from a mid laner who's able to shop waves first, you can actually create a lead through the bot lane, as we saw in the first game with BTXL against Godsend, where they completely dismantled their bot lane.
Okay, the Azir ban. So both Renekton and Camille are open. Also, to answer a point about not going Ezreal as Nordavind's there, I think with both Karma and Yuumi down, these teams probably just deprioritize Ezreal in those situations in general. Though I'm not sure if I approve of Karma plus Aphelios as a lane in and of itself, but they do deny the Ezreal with that. So maybe they felt pigeonholed. I'm just really interested to see what the pick is for Mumu's now, because there are 2 carries up. Lee Sin is now in, and with either of those 2 champions, it would be actually a pretty free tabbies back as well. So you're actually in a pretty good situation. See what happens.
I mean, Scood's Lee Sin is pretty classic for him. Obviously, the Talia ban is probably against Scood, and the Nidalee ban as well, something that we've seen him play a lot of. But Lee Sin is a good pick for Scood. He feels comfortable there. And I'm also excited to see, please don't, not the Maokai. Come on, it's the Maokai.
I'll say why. Like, with the Camille and Renekton open, but the Mordekaiser banned, you are now locked into a scenario where it's a really free tabbies back for the Ornn, and Lee Sin is a guy who will give up on his full clear to get you that free early back, whereas Graves is a champion that won't. So it wouldn't actually go that well if you did go for one of Camille, Fiora, Renekton, one of these. So they've opted into Maokai here instead. But overall, this looks like a team that suddenly lacks a bit of damage, though at least it has set up for... Oh, I don't like the Zoe. I definitely don't like the Zoe. Zoe is very off theme here. It's not a full poke composition. Quite what her purpose is beyond me, but I guess they're viewing it as the only like blind pick left. But you could even go something like LeBlanc here and it could be fine. Orianna is still up, that would be fine, and Orianna would be very on theme here. But Zoe is very off theme, and I don't necessarily like Zoe when she's not on theme.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. I felt like Orianna would fit that comp perfectly. You're looking for blind pick mid laner. Why not just let it be the Orianna that already is team fight oriented, can wave clear for you. You got the Misfortune, but you don't always want to use the bullet time for that wave clear. You want to use it for the fight. So now you're looking at a lane all of a sudden where you can come in and get that pressure early against the Zoe. It is the LeBlanc matchup versus the Zoe, which is really telegraphed. That can easily be set up for kills. The question is this mid lane from LeBlanc going to be used selfish, as we talked about, or is it going to be used to roam down towards that bot side with the Lee Sin to create a lead for your backline?
Well, very quickly before we jump into game with the Casas trouble, what do you think? What do you make of these 2 compositions? Are you still in the Nordavind camp, or have you been swayed slightly to Singularity?
Honestly, I really am. I just like Zoe in every single scenario. She gets slightly ahead. It's just so hard for you to try and face check to get towards those objectives. Lee Sin is never necessarily going to get really tanky. He's going to get tanky-ish at some point with cleavers and whatnot. So sure, maybe Orianna would have been better, but you get that Zoe slightly ahead, and it's going to be GG from there on.
Yeah, I think I remember talking to you, European Masters. Zoe was on your illegal list, so I'm not surprised to hear you say that. I do believe we are gearing up to go to the casters. I'm just waiting for the go-ahead from our production. But Veteran, before we dive into the... I'm being told straight away we can go to the casters. So I'm going to hand it over to Orcs and Hitbrain. See you soon.
Thank you very much, Excandrel. No more talking for Veteran. It's down to you, Orcs. Talk to me about these team comps. Talk to me about this game. This is Nordavind taking on Singularity here. What are we looking at, Orcs?
So, I mean, for me on paper, I felt like Nordavind with a stronger roster, but I'm not too confident about the draft. Singularity, you know, it was a choice for Nordavind not to go for the Aphelios first pick that we've seen quite often. And Singularity are like, well, if we take Aphelios Lulu, you can go Karma Ezreal. So they kind of took components from both. It weakens their bot lane, but it's left Nordavind in this position where they've gone Misfortune Lulu, which I don't think is a strong combo. And it means, to me, Nordavind's composition is a little bit disjointed. I still think individually they are strong players, so they may be able to bring it out. I think the player I'm going to be looking at in particular is going to be Nulty on this Graves to see what pressure he can apply, especially when you're potentially going to be threatened in mid, because Lee Sin and LeBlanc, super threatening in the early stages. Super hard to deal with. If they land one chain, often that can be a kill. Yeah, so you see Nulty backing off in this situation. Interesting to see if they can get the information on the level 1. Because I feel like you could go for proactive level 1 if you invade with the Maokai through topside. We'll have to see if he does plan for that.
Yeah, we'll have to see indeed. Right, looks like we just have a pretty standard start across the board. There was that little cheeky look around, a sniff, to see if they could find some kind of an invade, but not going to get it. Junglers both starting up on their top side of the map. Means they both will be heading down, mirrored to each other towards that bot side. Wonder if we can see any kind of early 3v3s down there. No wards that have been placed, so they won't be spotting each other, tracking each other through the jungle, so not really working with too much information as well.
Could even see the Lee Sin go for level 2 gank mid when you rotate. If LeBlanc hits level 2, you could just distortion in, land a chain, you can follow up, path towards the boss side of the map and play around the priority you'll have there, because I expect to see only 35 and take set pushing up. When you have the Karma against the Lulu, does give you that advantage in terms of priority, but looks like Scoot actually pathing up towards the Krog, so a bit more for full clear, likely waiting for the level 3, which typically is what we see when you start to make pressure for the Lee Sin, is that level 3 point.
Well, Scoot's just doing a clear of his red and his Krugs. Might just be a full clear, actually, of his red side. See whether or not he starts to go for the Raptors. There has been a ward placed down. He's actually just beelining towards his blue buff.
Yeah, if you actually look at how he
pathed, a full clear.
But if you actually look at how he pathed, he specifically dodged that ward. If he was walking straight to his walls, it would have been faster for him to walk through past that where that ward is placed. So he's clearly aware of it. He clearly wants to avoid giving over the information. But there is that aspect of they still know the Raptors are up. So by deduction, you can work out roughly where Scoot is going to be by those being up. But it means they don't directly see him on the map.
The process of elimination, really.
That it is. And been a bit of back and forth in the bot lane here. Obviously, trading power of Misfortune early is pretty solid, but the Karma's long-range harass is a really strong tool to be utilized, especially if you combine it with pushing. But lane's actually pushing towards take set and only 35 in this situation. See, Scoot is on the bot side of the map, and potentially they could look for something. Looks like he's just going to go for the scuttle for now.
Now, I also want to actually talk to you a little bit about this mid lane, because there was a bit of a discrepancy on the desk, actually, where Veteran didn't like the Zoe in Nordavind's comp, while Troublelink, she said she liked it. She liked Zoe no matter what, really. Me and you have talked previously about how we think it's a good blind pick. What are your making of this LeBlanc versus Zoe matchup? Do you think the Zoe suits Nordavind's comp?
I feel like Zoe's fallen off a bit as a blind pick. It was better in sort of previous iterations of the meta, but right now there are better blind picks that are these sort of scaling mages. And I feel like I understand why they're taking it in order to have an answer to the LeBlanc, because maybe you don't feel confident to pick Orianna into LeBlanc Lee Sin. But I feel like it just kind of hampers your comp quite a bit. I think something like Orianna really facilitates the Graves. It allows you to play around those shields and have Mummus engage in essentially without very much sort of reserve, because you know you have the shields and the extra help from Lulu to back you up. So I'm kind of agreeing with Veteran here. I don't massively agree with the Zoe in this composition, but I think it is more about sort of having a lane matchup that you can feel you can survive and contest the priority with LeBlanc, because that is one of the issues with LeBlanc. It is quite difficult for you to find the ability to shove in. That's normally not a problem if you can look to punish on the back of ganks, but as of yet, there hasn't really been too much of that coming in, and Ericsson's just been shoving away in this matchup.
Alrighty, well. Top lane. Only lane that's really struggling in the CS deficit area. There are slight leads here and there, but Mumus will be catching this wave, so should pretty much all but negate that deficit he does find himself in.
Yeah, it's been a very slow back and forth. We've seen a triple Dorans come out from Chrisberg, so very much looking to establish some presence in the lane right now. Whereas typically we'll see the Aphelios go for that BF sword, so a bit of a slower acceleration to the game where he will take longer to be relevant, because the Misfortune can just be a presence even in these early fights right now. You see only 35 pairing up with Scoot, just helping them go for an invade on that camp, and do establish a little bit of a vision line down towards the bot lane with that control ward that should be cleared out here by Bebop Bully. So potentially they would be setting up for a roam from Varao later on, but the answer comes in from Nordavind, so shutting down the vision before they have a chance.
You can see the jungle support synergy also coming through here for the side of Nulty and Bebop Bully. They can look to try and contest this Cloud Drake. It's not the most important Drake. It does look like
that's the big thing.
They don't want to give it up though.
That's the big thing though. When you see a Cloud Dragon, that means you're not having a Cloud Soul, which increases actually the priority on the Dragon. I actually feel like an individual Cloud Dragon isn't so bad, particularly on ult-reliant champions like LeBlanc. You can shorten that cooldown quite significantly and get a lot of value. So taking this Cloud Soul means you're going to get either Ocean, Mountain, or Infernal later on, which are really high impact dragons. Now, they have the vision control, they're feeling strong with the priority in bot lane. Remember, we saw the triple Dorans on Chrisberg, but that was actually answered by Take Set, so he's wanting to keep up in terms of power, and yet they still don't choose to contest this situation. Resets come in for Varao and Scoot, and the dragon gets taken up pretty easily by Nordavind. So a good play, just based off the fact that you had priority in that bot lane.
Yeah, they make their way back. They don't lose any minions from that. They're going to catch this wave. I've been pretty happy with the start of this game. There's been no massive deficit to speak of. There's been not too much jungle action with the Graves, with the Lee Sin. We maybe expected to see something, but they're quite happy just invading each other and farming. There are a lot of wards placed down for the side of Nordavind along that river. You can see Nulty, he's waiting in the wings in case an opportunity arises. However, it doesn't, so he is just going to have to back out.
This is kind of what we expected from this Nordavind roster. We have Chrisberg, who it was talked about on the desk, how he's a very sort of bot lane centric player and he likes his teams to play in that manner. But the thing is, on their last teams, Bebop Bully was on Vipers in the Nordic scene and Nulty was on Envision in the UKLC. Both of those players played a pretty bot centric style. And so all has sort of come together here where we have heavy vision investment on the bot side. And also we have Nulty shadowing there just to give them some assistance. You see now him pathing up towards the top side, but Varao and Scoot, they had priority and they are looking to capitalize on that and look for a blue buff steal in this situation. Blackshist is already moving down to assist.
Yeah, looks like they're closing in on all fronts though. Nulty goes for the blind just to send them pack in. Scoot can execute if he needs to. Mumus throws out the saplings, and that's going to be the kick. Nulty secures the blue buff, but in comes the fight. Mumus throws down the ultimate. The Drowsy's enough for first blood. Easily picked up by Ericsson. The call of the Forge Squad's coming down. Flash this kicks from knocked up onto Nulty as they do look for the potential chains. Ericsson gets a flash, gets it ignite, and Varao now has to be so careful. The Zoe's going to chase him down, and Ericsson finds 2 kills.
It's a little bit overzealous there by Singularity on that skirmish. They end up trying to go in for the blue buff, but you're playing in a sort of close, tight corridor where Zoe can get a lot of value. And in those skirmishes, the Graves super powerful, and the Zoe able to pick up those critical summoners like the Ignite, like the Flash. They get rewarded, they get the blue, they get a couple of kills, and now translating that into this Herald. So big win so far for Nordavind.
Let's have a little look at that team fight once again. Or we'll just look at the Abyss. We'll find out. Nulty in the meanwhile does get the Rift Herald.
That was a point of view of Singularity after they got taken down. But right now, so got the Herald already in the pocket. I expect to see Nulty path towards the bot side of the map, and you can look to utilize that there. You could also throw it down mid. If you find Varao roaming, you can definitely look for an opportunity to get some plates. You do see a bit of aggressive play coming out here. Scoot is looking to punish again with regards to this red buff, and they should go pretty much uncontested. Nulty's still on the top side of the map. We should just be able to take this one up. Sprig and Bebop Bully feeling a little bit precarious on the tower here, but there's no real threat to them right now.
Wild Growth, Barrier, Flash, Heal. They've got every tool available to them. They shouldn't really get dosed, though. They're just going to stay underneath his tower. Chrisberg's a little low on mana, however. Probably why we saw him wanting to get a base off. He's starting to bleed out a little bit down there. And you can actually now see that Scoot, again, jumps in to steal away some more camps from Nulty. Nulty this time will slide in and secure that for himself.
And I think you're seeing Scoot's sort of playstyle is very much a counter jungler. You know, his pocket pick is that Nidalee, also things like Talia. He is the sort of jungler who will invade you and challenge you on camps. And I'm not necessarily, I don't feel like that was the sort of game plan that should have been in place here when you have a LeBlanc in the mid lane. I would have liked to see more pressure mid. But the end result is he is challenging Nulty on these camps. He's still 3 camps down though, so it hasn't really gone too successfully for him. It's given Nordavind pretty much a free pass just to get into a comfortable spot right now. Your Zoe's strong, your bot lane's feeling comfortable, you've got the Herald in pocket. So maybe would I like to see more sort of lane-focused aggression from Scoot.
Excellent. Not able to take out that pink ward. Let's look for a little something with the bubble, with the play. Varel knows where Nulty is. Question to me is where is Nulty going to use this Herald? He can look to throw it down mid lane. Varel will have to burn a fair amount to be able to clear out the wave in time. He is able to get it though.
Yeah, I don't really like it just throwing it down for a couple of plates. I think if you're going to use it, try and use it for a more focused push. And actually, they've rotated Mummus in here. So it seems like this is their plan. Dragon spawning in 15 as well. You look to shove mid, throw down the Herald. And then the enemy team has to respond. And if they respond, they sacrifice the Dragon. So pretty clear path if Nordavind want to get that Dragon. But looks like instead they're just going to group around it. Now, Flaxus is pushing in the top lane, but he does have TP. So this could be a 5v5.
Yeah, looks like we might just be seeing something here. Mummus trying to zone for the moment.
It's a lot of damage.
Turret gets placed down. That is a lot of damage. Infernal Drake getting started up. That's going to be the grass to catch out a couple of members. Scoot throws out the kick and jumps in. That's going to be the Dragon secured for the fight. And it's on to Nordavind, who is just trying to run away. But Flaxus will take a fair amount of damage. Varel goes for the double distortion over the wall. Tries to turn it into Nulty. Can he find more? Mummus taking a fair amount of damage from Take Set, though. As Chrisberg will slow them down. Nobody dies in the fight. And the Dragon is secured by Nordavind.
Overall, I've got to say it was a win for Nordavind. You got the Dragon, you only lost 1 member, and you got the TP from Flaxish. But I don't think it was a good play from them. I think we talked about, Chrisberg could be in trouble.
Yeah, Chrisberg could be in a lot of trouble here. He does get slowed down, has that bullet time available to him. Can he make the distance? Goes for the flash. Takes it, comes in, the shield's there in time. Bebop Bully saves the day. Down goes Take Set.
Well, now it's definitely in favor of Nordavind. Just overzealous from Take Set there. You bait his flash, take it, back away. You should have expected Bebop Bully to be respawning. Instead, gets bloodthirsty and ends up going down. Now it's even more so in favor of Nordavind. Their TP is going to be coming up fairly soon for Mummus, so they can make plays on that. They still have the Herald available. They're just throwing it down mid lane as there's about a timeout. Ultimately, just not, in my opinion, the correct play around the Dragon, but it has worked out extremely favorable for Nordavind.
Can pick up some plates here as well. With the more sparkles, Zoe does do a nice little bit extra to these towers. Rao gonna get poked out a little bit. Can they get this last plate at the least? As Rao actually looks for the chains. Gets instantly polymorphed. The Graviton connects onto Nulty. Nulty looks to try and make a run. Didn't quite have that collateral damage in time. And Bebop is also gonna fall here. Flaxish moving over to save the day just in case, but Nordavind losing 2 and Singularity finding the kills nice and easy.
Oh, Ericsson could look. And have the ult. Yeah, ult was down, so I wasn't able to find it. But ultimately, again, this is just a misplay from Nordavind. This time, though, it does get punished. Around the Dragon, although the fight was good from Singularity, they could only get 1 kill. But here, they overstep. Nordavind try and get that last plate, and they spend too much time. The engage comes in, the movement speed from Karma helping that out. And the end result is, despite using the Herald to get those plates, they actually end up trading a little bit down because of the kills. So a greedy mistake from Nordavind. If they're just throwing the Herald down, taking 2, maybe 3 plates, I would have been happy with the play. And then stepping up too far, not respecting the enemy team is what bites back. And I think that was sort of the story of that Dragon fight as well. They didn't respect Singularity's ability to fight it, and actually Singularity really forced them away from that objective. And if it wasn't for the fact that they weren't able to find some critical members, like Scoot, I feel like had a bit of a weak kick that was onto Mummus, then maybe this game could be more favored to Singularity. But right now, they're down 2 dragons, down about 700 gold. So behind, but definitely not out of this one. And then a little bit afraid of Nordavind making another mistake.
Oh, bubble. Just about missing out there. The redemption for the Zoe means Ericsson's going to clear out this wave fairly quickly. And Brow's going to have to cancel that base, try and catch this wave. The moves are being made here. So it looks like Nordavind, they want to start up this Herald. Mummus now just going to be on zoning control, putting his little tree saplings down. Singularity, though, they look to want to fight here. Flaxish does have that ultimate available, and Singularity slowly making their way up. It's half health onto the Herald, and Ericsson just continues to zone with the slow going down. This should just be Herald secured for the side of Nordavind, but the fight is on for Singularity. Call of the Forge score gets dodged out by Nulty. Ericsson looks for a little bit of poke over the wall, and Singularity, they get nothing for that.
Not sure whether we were even trying to fight it. Takes just wasn't there. He was walking down from top lane, and yet they still look like they were trying to take that fight. If Nordavind had found an engage there, that would have been disastrous for Singularity. Essentially, what we're seeing from Nordavind is they'll just go to an objective and say, yeah, we're starting this, and what? And Singularity, that time, didn't really have an answer to that. The end result is they end up getting forced away, but they don't lose any members. Herald now in the pocket off Nulty on this Graves, so an opportunity to potentially look for one of these outer towers. Mid lane is low enough just to kill with one charge, but could well feel like that's a bit of a waste. Now, 40 seconds on this Ocean Dragon. Based on what I've seen in this game so far, I expect Nordavind just to walk over and start it up. Would be the third for them, so typically we see teams wanting to contest this one. Getting up to Soul Point feels very delicate, especially with an Ocean Soul, with a Maokai and a Graves. Those two champions benefit from it so heavily because they essentially just feel unkillable. So you do see Singularity setting up already. They had the priority advantage with a quicker reset. And they are potentially looking for a pick here, so if Bebop Bully steps up, could just get taken out.
Bebop playing a little bit safer there, stepping away. I wanted to get caught out, Scoot. Gonna start up this Dragon. Looks like Nordavind, they may just trade out and push mid lane here. They're quite happy. They summon out the Herald, and naturally now they're looking to come in and teleports on. Dragon's on half HP. Ericsson looks for the bubble. Dragon getting closer and closer to going down. Scoot will be able to secure it. And now he has to jump over the wall, the ward hop. And Mummus will follow him with a twisted advance, landing that slow. Nulty now dashing after him. They've got all of the damage to work with. And Ericsson is on a killing spree, securing another kill for himself.
Yeah, a little slow on the rotation there from Nordavind. They get the Herald down mid. I like that play. It just means that they threaten that mid lane tower, and I believe it might have got a second. Yeah, got a second charge into the inner tower. So getting good value out of that. And it forces Singularity had to commit to the Dragon, and they end up losing a lot of pressure in the mid lane. They're going to lose this tower bot. So I like this trade there from Nordavind. Having 2 dragons under your belt, it makes it a threat to the other side. They know they have to commit everything to the Dragon. And the end result is we're seeing Nordavind start to pull ahead as a result. Just under 3,000 up in gold. But Ericsson, you're overstepping there, I feel.
Yeah, does have a lot of movement speed with that Spell Thief. Needs to keep running those. Only's actually looking to run him down. Gets the exhaust. The Call of the Forge God's being used. Brow's looking to come in. Ericsson just dodging and diving away from everything. The bubble will look to send Singularity packing. He's able to get out.
Yeah, this is just kill chasing at this point from Singularity. It's almost like a frustration in the fact that you got outmatched by the enemy team. Oh, they took 2 towers. We'll take a kill. But this now just means that Crispberg's able to push top alone. They've taken another tower. Singularity need to sort of ask themselves what they're looking to get out of this. 1 kill on Ericsson really, as much as there's a bounty on it, losing out on the rest of the map, missing waves, losing a tower isn't worth it.
Well, we've got a bit of a way until Baron really looks to become a threat. Crispberg with that Essence Reaver, although takes that is matching him with an Infinity Edge. The AD carries isn't where the difference is for me. It's Ericsson. Look at that. Protobelt into the Luden's Echo on the Zoe.
Just night him up.
Just an entire item up over Val.
I mean, even in the bot lane, the CS difference has given a whole BF sword over to Crispberg, and that raw AD really benefits Misfortune. With take set, you want to have your Runans available, a bit more crit chance for the auto attacks, but Crispberg just having the raw damage is a massive asset. We actually see the flashes burn there by take set, and the ultimate of Crispig. So I believe takes that core out and have to burn the flash to get away. You see Brow and Scoot potentially looking. Nordavind just making a push up mid to finish this low HP tower.
It's going to take a fair amount of damage there from Ericsson on the Zoe. Ericsson kind of doing what Zoe does best. Just hanging over the wall, looking for those portal jump paddle star combos and looking to poke people out, but has to be a little careful. Can't always get caught out. Mumus actually looks for something onto Flaxish. Gonna find himself the slow, but Flaxish can just steering charge away to safety. 4,000 gold after 20 minutes is the lead that Nordavind currently have. This game doesn't feel quite as clear-cut as our previous games from earlier on in the day. It does still feel like Singularity have some fire left in them, have some fight left in them right now.
You can tell they're looking, because I'll bring your attention. If you look at the top lane, you'll see there's a pretty big wave stacked up by Nordavind there. So someone should be looking to answer that eventually. And I think that's what Nordavind are really waiting for. When someone moves up top lane, you can see LeBlanc going now. That means there's a lot less pressure mid, and they maybe can get some damage on... Well, actually, that tower's already down, but they can potentially push the wave up further, consolidate their vision in the Dragon area, rotate towards bot lane, and threaten that tower. Now that they see the LeBlanc is away, they're actually just going to take the opportunity to reset, but they are looking for Flaxish on the bot side, but I think Zoe missing everything kind of rules that out.
Yeah, Ericsson literally missed everything, and now Flaxish looks to turn it around. Ericsson still got that flash, remember, though, so they can look to continue to run. The Nature's Grasp is going to catch them out as Flaxish gets put to sleep and chunked, but only heals him up with the shield and the Fiends.
Yanis just kill chasing, just trying to find a kill. Wasn't really going to amount to anything. Flaxish forcing really hard in that situation. And the thing is, what they should have done is they should have looked to clear out the vision in their jungle. Instead, they were focused on those kills, but if you look across in the blue side jungle, there's still wards up. There's a ward right under take set now. And it means that despite the fact Nordavind's reset, they still have the control set up for this dragon. But now Bebop Bully's got a full sight zone of wards. They can just consolidate that vision, clear out the wards that Nolty's going to do now. So Singularity a bit more focused on kills than playing for the objectives. And it's a little bit worrying when that third dragon potentially for Nordavind is coming up in 15 seconds.
It is indeed. 22 minutes on the clock. Dragon, like you said, spawning up in 10 seconds time. You can see the gold differences on your screen between the individual players. 1,000 up in the jungle, 1,000 up in the mid lane. Big lead in the bot lane as well. Mainly coming off just the CS deficit. Crispberg, 236 CS, but Singularity actually kind of calling them out here. Take That has a great weapon combo to actually do this Baron. Mumus is going to finish it up, and Baron's lost about a quarter of its health. Looks like they're going to have to back away. Scoot wasn't quite tanky enough, and now look for Vrao. Vrao wants to find the opening, wants to find that ability to get the assassination off. The Wild Growth gets used by Bebop early. Kick comes out, and now Flaxish teleported into the fray.
It's a really rough TP, so far away from them. They're going to start up again. They want the fight. I'm sure they win this.
Gotta be so careful. Remember, the Baron's going to be spreading their magic resist as well.
I mean, you just can't do this against a Zoe and a Misfortune. You get trapped in that pit, and you're just going to lose the fight. The thing was, Flaxish TP'd in when they were right under their mid lane tower. The threat wasn't there. Now, they're even scared to walk mid lane, and Nolty's just shoving the mid wave up. It's going to crash into the tower. And again, Singularity like, well, our only option here is to try start the Baron again. Well, let's see if it works.
Ericsson, bubble from downtown on to a carry. The bullet time onto Scoot. He's going to be zoned out of that fight. Ericsson again looking for more. Is going to get caught out by the chains. This is the call of the Forge God from Flaxish. The flash away. The Nature's Grasp looks to chase them down, though. Tank is going to be melted through here by Nordavind. Scoot comes in for the kick. Lands it onto Crispberg as Vrao looks to go in and finish him up. But the chains landed onto Bebop Bully. And now Nordavind is just turning the team fight around. A double kill for Ericsson. And a clean ace for Nordavind.
Nordavind crushed that fight. It looked like the flank was going to come from Vrao, but it just wasn't enough. The peel was there, the shielding was there, the CC setup was perfect. They get a clean ace, and they're going to transition that into this Baron. Nordavind just crushing this one.
2,000 health on the Baron. No one alive for the side of Singularity. That's going to get picked up as Ericsson grabs the Baron, pushes up. With this Protobelt Zoe, you have a lot of wave clear, and with the more sparkles, you just melt through these turrets now. Let's have a little look at that Baron fight once again.
And this was just Singularity forcing again and again and again. and they eventually realize they have to try something. The ult and the almost dodged away from. Mummus goes in and just feels so tanky. The kick from Scood, you can see he's trying to get it in position for Vrao to finish it off, but Vrao doesn't find the damage. And on top of that, Scood sacrifices himself, Flaxish sacrifices himself, and then the back line of takes that and only 35 are just sitting ducks to be cleaned up. So ultimately, it was a poor decision from Singularity, and it really backfired massively after some good team fighting from Nordavind. They knew they just needed to stay clustered together, benefit from the peel of the Lulu, and kill whoever came closest to them. They didn't split up, and it favored them massively. And now with the Baron, push up towards his bot lane. There's not very much wave clear on the side of Singularity. Remember, Aphelios doesn't have his Runans available yet, so not able to even offer that towards clearing out these waves. And Crispberg just feels so confident. Level 14, he is higher level than anyone in Singularity right now as the AD carry. And with the Lulu block backing him up, he just feels confident.
Yeah, not a care in the world for Crispberg. He's got himself a 53 CS lead over Takeset and an additional kill over him. Well, that'll be the bot lane inhibitor fooling. They've got an open mid lane as Nulty. He just takes the shortcut through the base. He has no fear.
I think that's a good way of describing this game right now. Open mid lane. Nordavind pushing up and Singularity trying to posture. I'm not going to find anything yet.
Yeah, looks like they are just going to concede the mid and bot lane inhibitors. Nordavind now just going to clear out the jungle, go for the reset, spend that gold. Crispberg sitting on the Essence Reave and the Infinity Edge. Just got a massive influence of gold. Gets himself the Zeal and a Vampiric Scepter on that base.
See Nulty hanging around to finish his buy. I think he's going to try and get the Phantom Dance off this reset by going for those Krugs. Do you see the Dragon spawn in a minute? So this is going to be the Soul. Currently, we're looking at an 8,500 gold lead for Nordavind. You can see the individual gold differences across the board. It's just pretty consistent, but there are big ones, particularly between the AD carries. They're leaning towards the top side. They're not even opting to go near that ocean for the Soul. They want to keep applying the pressure while this Baron is still available. And this last out of tower should be easy pickings. You can see right now they're trying to answer the super minions in the other lanes, and no one's trying to defend this one for Singularity.
Yeah, that turret will be crawling down here. Feels like Singularity are kind of in a rough position now. They can't really go try and take that ocean. They get nothing for it, bar just denying the Soul by a little bit. They got to deal with these waves, and not have been quite happy to trade out Scood. He gets caught out by the bubble, and Chris is going to destroy him. He is down. This might just be the game, actually. Down a member for 30 seconds. Baron buff has worn off, though, so it's not quite as opportunistic, but Crispberg, look how much damage he's doing. He's just mixing through these waves.
With the Infernum and the Runans, you actually have the ability to clear the waves. I think right now Nordavind are going to try and keep the pressure up. It's still a 4v4, even with Nulty going to clear the Ocean Dragon, but Singularity looking for the engage.
Yeah, it's going to be the call of the forward dodge onto Crispberg. They have the wild growth. They're going to use it, and he is alive. Ericsson is dominating as he gets another one. Flaxish finds a two-man knockup, and Mummus is running amok on the backline. The bullet time cuts through Flaxish like it's nothing as Crispberg finds a double kill. They're teleporting into the base. This is going to be the end of the game. Only gets caught by the twisted advance, and he will be cut down in his prime. Nordavind taking down the turret. A triple kill for their AD carry. 6-0 and 5 on the Zoe. 6-0 and 5 on the Miss Fortune. 28 minutes on the clock. This is the game going to Nordavind.
Nothing really Singularity could do there. They tried to go for the fight, and honestly, it was probably the best fight you were going to find when Nulty wasn't even there, but it just wasn't enough. They couldn't threaten Crispberg. He was too strong. He had the protection of the Lulu, and the end result is they go down. And I think it was one of those games where you have to look at the earlier stages. You look at the fact that Scood wasn't really playing to snowball his LeBlanc freer up from the lane. He was using the priority to try and get invades and just steal away camps, and it really didn't amount to much. Nulty still ended up ahead in farm. It meant that mid lane, they weren't really able to challenge the Zoe, which I feel like would have been the game plan for me. And then they weren't able to transition the lead elsewhere. And Nordavind, honestly, I don't think their play was perfect. I think they kind of just said, okay, we're going to start an objective. Let's see if they fight us. And every time, Singularity just kind of failed. So maybe a stronger team, you couldn't get away with that. But Nordavind, they knew what they needed to do. It worked for them, and they came out with a pretty convincing win.
Yeah, it was just a super convincing win. And I feel that's kind of been the theme for today. A lot of the games have been pretty convincingly one-sided. That game definitely, like I said, in the game, it felt like there was moments, there was chances for Nordavind to throw that game out the window. But, you know, there was at least we saw some life. I think that's the key thing. Singularity still put a fight up in some areas. They still challenged them. But unfortunately, Chris Berg was just too far ahead. It's kind of standard stuff for what you see when Chris Berg is playing. So just big congratulations over to Nordavind. They do pick their first win up of the NLC. But we're going to cut to a quick break. And when we're back, we actually have an interview and the analyst test to break that game down further. So we'll see you in a second.
I'm not forcing, no picture perfect, moment lasting anymore. And I'm not waiting for some golden moment to arrive at my door. I wanna push the question, I wanna force the issue, I wanna relish in silence, I wanna catch the ball, I wanna catch it.
Well, that was a quick game again. It just felt like it was going to be close at the start, but then very quickly, Singularity started to fall apart. And I think it kind of draws us back, Veteran, to where we started in the sense that Singularity don't look very coordinated.
Yeah, they definitely don't. That didn't feel like a fast game to me. I was actually really surprised when they were on the inhibitors at 25 minutes and even expressed as much. But Singularity definitely didn't look like a team that was working together as five. Nordavind quite clearly were having like some issues, but SNG were making the game as easy for them as they possibly could. And ultimately, even though execution was very off by both teams, Nordavind had enough by making their plays as five to be able to make it through for the win.
I want to talk about a bit what just happened at your screen too. That was just a blue buff invade who just started the snowball from Nordavind in the beginning. And it was not necessarily on their terms too. It was Singularity that just decided, okay, we're feeling confident in this blue buff invade, we're going to go for it. And it just ended up biting them in the back. And I feel like just in general, they were a bit too rushed. They have a fine scaling composition too. They have enough feelers. And it felt like they kept playing like they had an early game team composition.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I think actually you mentioned it when we were looking at the game. You like, I think Veteran specifically. I remember you said, yeah. I know this is a bit of a SMH, but Veteran mentioned, you know, like why was the 3 Doran's Blades needed on Aphelios? Like you weren't going to keep pace in the early game, and it feels like they were attempting to, but just getting outskilled and maybe not feeling very coordinated in the way that they approached it. Obviously, then Trouble, we had the Baron player and the sort of the calls around that, and it really didn't feel like Singularity had a clear idea about what they wanted to achieve with that.
Hey, I felt like I was in an A on that Baron, all right? I don't think any of the two teams... Well, you can say that Nordavind had an idea of what they wanted to do. They were just waiting for Singularity to pull the trigger because they were ahead. They knew they could engage. But they pull a very weird teleport from Flaxis, showing that they really just want to either take this fight or take the Baron while their mid lane wave was attacking their inhibitor tower. So it was a very weird fight to take. Nordavind was already ahead. It was a little bit of a question mark ping on this one.
Ultimately, if it wasn't for that route from Mumus, this fight still could have gone either way. Both teams clearly have a lot to work on. So much went wrong mechanically in that fight and went wrong mechanically throughout the game that it comes down to something as easy as a Maokai ultimate to be the deciding factor. And for both these teams to kind of be in that scenario, you'd have to think that neither of them right now look like a proper contester for the top 4.
And something that we talked about at the start, but is yet to be answered, is the fact if Nordavind is playing around Crispec or they're not, because it was definitely not answered in this game. It was a very weird pick to see Crispec onto a Misfortune and not a Hypercar, which would indicate they want to play around him, but they didn't necessarily play around their solo lanes either. It felt like every man for himself, and as Vettel said, a little bit uncoordinated as well. So I've yet to see the identity of Nordavind. Are they going to pull a Fnatic and they can carry through every lane? Stay tuned to find out.
If anything, they may even end up playing around their jungler. Like we saw a first pick waves here. It ended up messing up the rest of the draft order for them. We didn't expect to see Mumus where I saw Mumus. We didn't expect to see Crispberg where I saw Crispberg, and we didn't expect to see anyone on these champions. But what we do see is a priority onto that hyper carry Grace for Nulty. They did play around him. Obviously, SMG pulled the trigger like Goldberg put out. Maybe this is a team that's going to play around their jungler, similar to the last fixes that we saw in Riddle. But yeah, remains to be seen.
I can actually look to answer some of those questions for you, veteran, as Ericsson is here for me with an interview, and we're going to have a little chat to him. So, Ericsson, I guess I can lead off. Congratulations, obviously, for the win. Great start for you guys. It was awesome to see you on Barrage last split in the UKLC. You were one of the hype mid laners that we were really excited to see burst out onto the scene. Let's start with what the veteran was mentioning. The Graves first pick for Nulty. Is it something? Is he a person that you're looking to play around in the team, or is it just the game plan that you were opting for this particular game?
So I think Graves is like pretty strong right now. So it's more like just about how we look at the picks and what we think is good. The first pick. So it's more like it's not necessarily like our team identity to play around a certain person. It's more like just what we think is good for this draft.
Sure. I mean, I guess obviously a lot of junglers are valuing, a lot of teams are valuing Graves pretty highly. I know there was some debate with us on the analyst desk about Aphelios versus Graves first pick, but obviously you guys opted into the Graves there, and it worked out for you at the end of the day. Something that we did have some discussion about, though, and something that I hope you can shed a little bit of light on, is the Zoe pick for you. There was a lot of thoughts about Orianna potentially being a pick that might have worked out better in that scenario. What was the theory behind the Zoe for you in this particular game?
Yeah, so obviously when you have Graves, you probably want to get like some prio in certain lanes. So we just thought that having Zoe is like really good to just speed through the early game and get like really fed on Graves and then just take him from there.
Basically just looking for mid lane prio. Zoe's kind of good blind in that scenario. So you just thought, okay, Zoe blind, good mid lane prio into most matchups, and we just work with that?
Yeah, it's more like just a facilitating pick for me to go Zoe there.
Okay. Sure, got it. So facilitate for that. Okay, that makes sense. So we were interested in finding out, so I'm glad to get that info from you. In terms of your team as a whole, Nordavind, we've had some strong statements so far from XL and from Riddle. They expect the top 4 to be Munster, XL, Fnatic, and Riddle. And they have been very strong in their opinions there. What do you think of that? Where do you think Nordavind comes into sort of the placements with some of the other teams that we've got contesting those top 2 spots for the European Masters?
I mean, so obviously I think the top 5 teams are like all pretty decent. So I think like we're for sure up there, and we're for sure looking to compete for the trophy and everything.
Yeah, obviously I expect you to fully. I mean, it's you look pretty good in that game. I think obviously lots of things that every team can learn from, and I'm expected to see you guys compete at the highest level. Thank you so much, mate, for joining us here, and good luck in your future NLC games. We look to see more from you. You were awesome in the UKLC last split, and hopefully continue that in the NLC this time round. So see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
All right, so I guess I'm going to hand this straight over to you, veteran, before we quickly sort of get ready for our next match. What did you make of the explanation behind the Zoe there?
Yeah, the idea that the Zoe can facilitate priority, that also is a condition met by an early rotation Orianna as well. It's a condition met by a lot of champions. My argument would be that if you look at the composition in whole and not just think about what would be the best way to get our Graves ahead, try to think about what gets our Graves ahead and works with the picks we already have, Orianna would then become a better pick in that regard. And I think that you could see, even though that Zoe got really fed really early on, her actual presence in the rest of the fights was a bit down, and even that fight wasn't really created by any sort of mid lane prio anyway. It's kind of created by SNG.
But obviously it worked out for Ericsson there, and I guess he was talking about getting the synergy there with Nulty and obviously making that Graves work for him, so it did. Now we have got a short break coming our way. Afterwards we have our final game of the day, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon.